What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. Welcome back, it's Kevin Forte, and today we are going to discuss the Los Angeles Kings. They had an interesting offseason. This is a difficult division to be at the top of. You consider that there's maybe some of the lower teams over the last couple of years in this division, but there is a fight at the top between Vegas and Edmonton over the last couple of years. But the Los Angeles Kings, are they on the brink of being into that category and maybe even surpassing one of those two teams with some of the moves they made this offseason? We're going to discuss that here today. So we're going to start off with some of the guys that left the organization. So the two, I would say, bigger names of the bunch, being David Rittich, who is a backup. He ends up going to the Islanders. And Vladislav Gavrikov, who also goes to the New York area, joining the New York Rangers. So how did they replace and even add beyond that some of the pieces on the Kings? So a bit of an interesting situation. I do like how they started, though. It signed a one-year deal, $4.3 million, to 29-year-old forward Andrei Kuzmenko. I think this is okay. It's not at all the worst contract that was signed by the Los Angeles Kings. You got to add guys that can score goals and produce points, and Kuzmenko can do that. And that was something they really lacked last season. I'd like to see them score a little bit more, and Kuzmenko is going to be part of the solution and not really the problem in that category. So I want to get to the one there's two defensive signings here that are kind of mind-boggling to me. Now, I just talked about in another video, I talked about the market for defensemen and how I would rather give one defenseman $7 million like a Vladislav Gavrikov compared to what exactly the Los Angeles Kings did here. And I'm still puzzled trying to figure this out, how they couldn't find a way to muster up $1.5 million to keep Gavrikov. Now, I think the bigger issue is, and you're going to say it here, well, Kevin, he didn't want to be with the Los Angeles Kings. I get that. And that's ultimately what happened here. He wanted to be a member of the New York Rangers, so this put them in a really bad spot. But the problem is, like, these two players they brought in, and no discredit to Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin, these are going to be bought out. There is no way these two players, they're probably very good people and things like that. It's no discredit to them, their character or anything like that. These are horrible contracts by the Los Angeles Kings. So Cody Ceci, 31-year-old defenseman, 4-year deal, making $4.5 million per season. Why is he making this much still? Have we not learned since that first deal with the Ottawa Senators? I don't understand. He's had a very interesting career. A lot of coaches really like him. He plays a lot of minutes. He played on the top line with Morgan Riley in Toronto. He played with Dallas last season. I don't fully get it with Ceci. He's 31 years old. He'll be 35 years old when this deal is done. I really do not like that contract. I'd like to be more positive. It's difficult for me to be on this one, though. I just don't think it's a good fit. $18 million over the next 4 years. It seemed like it reeked a little bit of desperation, in my opinion. I'm sure there was a market for him, but that's too much. I would have said no on that one. And then Brian Dumoulin, as if that one wasn't bad, this really isn't much better, and it might even be worse. Brian Dumoulin, at 33 years old, 3-year deal, which is going to be $12 million over the next 3 seasons, which is $4 million AAV. Again, I don't like the fact that almost $9% of your salary cap is spent on Dumoulin and Ceci. That's a third pairing defense making $9 million. I do not fully get that. I think they should have been looking more for like a Tony DeAngelo on the Islanders or a Mike Riley who ended up going to Carolina. Obviously, I'm using Islander examples. They're all around the league. There are guys you can get for $1 million as maybe he could prove himself on a 1-year deal, $1 million contract as a third pairing defenseman. This is too much, and they're old. They're 31, 33 respectively. They are great players. I'm sure they're great people. But that is too much term, too much money per season. Like I said, I'm sure there was a market for those guys. And the state tax is also a thing with California and the Los Angeles Kings. That's where you make a trade. You try to find a way to bring in somebody another way. This is brutal. I'm sorry. I have a really hard time. You know, I look at like the Islanders signed Alexander Romanov to 6.5. Nick Hague making 5.5 with Nashville. You're telling me that, $1 million difference is between Nick Hague and Dumoulin or CC? I find that very hard to believe. I think those contracts are going to really hurt the Los Angeles Kings, and it could even be as soon as this season. We'll see what happens, but I think the Kings, especially on the back end, got a little trigger happy with the dollar signs, and I think it is going to hurt them. Now that we're done with all that, I'm going to try and be more positive because I like some of the guys they brought in up front. And you want to talk about guys that, we talk about the blueprint of going into this summer. How are teams going to copycat the Florida Panthers? Being more difficult to play against, a pain in the ass, not taking any names, right? Like, this is a team that is going to replicate around the league. All of a sudden, magically, everybody's going to want these hot commodity players that are just ruthless and tough to play against. So, who do they bring in? Now, the first one, I think, is fair. Yoel Armia making, it seems a little high at 2.5, but again, with the salary cap going up, there might have been a little bit of a market for him, and he's a great penalty killer. Yoel Armia, this deal is going to take him until he's 34 years old, $2.5 million per. I've always been a fan of him. Like, if the Islanders signed him to that, I would be like, okay, I'm okay with that. I think he's a decent player. And I think for the Los Angeles Kings, you have a lot of younger guys coming in there, and I think they need guys that can kill penalties. They're always known to be a good team with, kind of in that regard. So it makes a lot of sense. I think that was a great pickup for them. And kind of replaces, maybe some other players that have left the organization recently. Corey Perry, he's still kicking it at 40 years old. And this pains me as a Anaheim Ducks fan because Corey Perry was always, if he was in California, he was an Anaheim Duck. So this is really weird that he's probably going to end his career playing for the Los Angeles Kings. I never really had that on my bingo card, but yeah, he signs a one-year deal, $2 million. I think that's fine. And all the experience he's brought, he's been to the Stanley Cup final the last, 4 years in a row? Is it 5 with the Los Angeles Kings? I don't necessarily think so, but who knows, right? You never know. I think he's he's just an addition that is going to, and honestly, I think Corey Perry is just going to bring that experience and leadership to this team. Alongside Yoel Armia is a pain in the ass to play against. That's going to only benefit them, hopefully when they make it to the playoffs next season and throughout the regular season, right? You don't sign Corey Perry and Yoel Armia specifically for the regular season. Yeah, they're good penalty killers, but they're not going to be putting up, if they hit 25, 30 points this season, you'd be happy with that. But we'll see how things kind of develop there. Anton Forsberg ends up coming to the Los Angeles Kings, comes over from Ottawa. A little bit of a rough road for Anton Forsberg, just replaces David Rittich. So we'll see how that goes. He'll be part of the 1A, 1B situation with the Kings once again. And that is pretty much it for the Kings in terms of moves. Like I said, I'm not really a fan of a lot of the things they did. I think up front, Armia, Perry are fine. Forsberg's fine. That's great. But you really needed a legit starting goalie. They did not do that. And I don't think they replaced Gavrikov. I think Ceci and Dumoulin are nowhere near the replacement of Gavrikov. And like I said, I understand. He didn't want to resign. That's fine. You find a way to make a trade. You find a way. You do something to get something done to get that in there. Because, I mean, you look at, Noah Dobson's making 9 with the Montreal Canadiens. Again, I look at, like, Nick Hague. Now, again, was Vegas going to be trading Nick Hague to the Kings? I don't know how involved that situation got, but that would have been a great fit for them as well. Like, there were defensemen out there, and you got to find a way to bring in one instead of trying to overpay just to act like you brought somebody in. I think that was a really poor decision by the management there in the Kings, and hopefully they prove me wrong. But I think this is probably going to blow up in their faces probably not far from now. And we'll look back on this video as, wow, Kevin's a genius and knew exactly what was going to happen, or I look like an idiot. We'll see what happens. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.